Hi, this is Dr. Rohit Punga, and I welcome you to the Zanart's Coffee Tutorials. And today, our topic of discussion is going to be one of my favorite topics in mandibular orthognathic surgery, that is the bilateral sagittal split ramus osteotomy. And of course, there have been a lot of videos and things about the bilateral sagittal split osteotomy. But I am going to tell you today the things that they do not teach you in your MDS or fellowship program so many times. And these are the things that you really need actually to perform a bilateral sagittal split osteotomy. Having said that, of course, I assume that the people who are watching this video have a basic idea of what the bilateral sagittal split osteotomy is. And in this video, I'm going to tell you the specific technical points that you will need when you're performing this osteotomy to perform it successfully. So let's look at one of the cases here to start with. That's a class 3 mandibular malocclusion, class 3 malocclusion of the skeletal class 3 malocclusion, and you can see that there's a prognathic mandible or a retrognathic maxilla. In fact, it was both in this case, and you can find that there's a deficiency of maybe the corpus of the maxilla, or maybe it is just retroposition, and there could be an increase in the length of the mandible, or maybe it is that of course is for the cephalometrics and the scans to find out. But this is what usually I do before my osteotomies. I no longer just rely on cephalometrics, and in fact, these are the real guides that I take because the modern planning of orthognathic surgery is all based on soft tissue, and the technical part is, I believe, based on the the scans.
So today's discussion is on mandibular orthognathic surgical procedures. To understand the mandibular orthognathic surgical procedures, I would want to explain certain elements of the anatomy here which are relevant to our mandibular orthognathic procedures. Let's go to one side of the mandible here and just try to see this anatomy. Now, mandibular orthognathic surgical procedures, as you know, is usually they are performed for the advancement or the setback of the mandible in cases of dentofacial deformities like a class 2 or a class 3 skeletal deformities of the mandible. So if you want to perform this procedure, you normally give three important cuts in the mandible. That is the horizontal cut, the oblique cut, and the vertical cut. Now, when you want to place these three important cuts, the important thing to understand here is the surgical anatomy relevant to this region. I would want your focus here at the coronoid notch, which contains the temporalis muscle fibers. Now, this temporalis fibers many a times will come down much anteriorly here up to the retromolar area, and they need to be retracted superiorly using a forked ramus retractor normally, because if these fibers are here, there will be a lot of interference to approach the medial aspect. So it's important to use a forked ramus retractor in this region and take the fibers back up there. Now, of course, you don't have to detach them from the coronoid, it has to be still attached. The next important thing is, as you take your periosteal levator and go inside the medial aspect of the ramus, you will find that there's an attachment of a ligament here with the lingula, that is the sphenomandibular ligament, which is attached to the sphenoid spine, spinous sphenoid, at the base of the sphenoid bone, and it comes down and attaches on the lingula of the mandible. Now, many a times this lingula of the mandible, it's slightly variable. Sometimes it may be very high while making this cut, and the position of the cut is this. It's roughly 3 to 5 mm superior to the lingula and 3 to 5 mm posterior to the lingula. Now, initially when this osteotomy was described, it was suggested that you take the cut all the way back up to the posterior border of the mandible, which was later on in the 1960s found to be not very relevant by Hansak. And he thereby said that you just make the cut 3 to 5 mm posterior and superior to the lingula, because he identified that there is and this cut has to be parallel to, if you carefully see, it's parallel to the lower border also, or the occlusal plane also. So this is the cut that I am talking about. Now, this is the position of the medial cut. Now, this cut can be made because you will find that as you go into the bone in the anterior area is little, relatively, it has some amount of medullary bone here. But as you go posteriorly, the amount of medullary bone between the outer and the inner cortices reduces. So the natural cleavage plane exists beneath this. If you see carefully this region, as you will take your cut posteriorly here, and after that, if you see that this region will have a natural cleavage plane, this region has a natural cleavage plane. Now, if you go and read the book William Bell, Modern Orthognathic Reconstructive Surgery, you will find in this region there is something which is known as the crista coli, which is a natural cleavage plane which exists. It's kind of an angular trajectory beneath this region, and that has a natural cleavage plane which will split this mandible on its own once the other cuts are completed. So that's the advantage of using this Hans-Sachs modification of the medial cut here, which is regularly practiced by all orthognathic surgeons over the last decade, maybe more than that. So that's the advantage of using this cut. The other is that the next cut that you make is the oblique cut. The oblique cut is nothing but just a cut which is going to be a continuation of the medial cut to the vertical cut. Now, as you want to make this cut, you will find that this medial cut ends at this point, and from then on you have to split the outer cortex as much as possible up to the region of the second molar. Now, having said that, you have to take care that when you're coming down with the oblique cut, this entire thing is going to contain the inferior alveolar neurovascular bundle. So make sure that your cut is just cortical deep usually. Now you can go a little deeper than that also, but you must understand that in this region, that is the retromolar region, the inferior alveolar neurovascular bundle will sometimes come down to be, come up to be rather pretty close, and it can be as close as 6 to 7 mm only beneath this cortical bone in the retromolar region. So when that is the case, you will have to limit your burr insertion in this region, and this is an important technical point that most orthognathic surgeons do not teach their students, that this region has to be carefully osteotomized when you're doing this. Also, another point that we've understood during practice is that you must keep this outer cortex as thin as possible, because the more deep you come in, the more are the chances that your inferior alveolar neurovascular bundle will be sticking onto the buccal side, which then has to be scooped out, and which is not a very good thing to do, although because it puts the inferior alveolar neurovascular bundle at risk. So therefore you should keep the inferior alveolar neurovascular bundle in mind when you're making this cut, that it could be up and it could be pretty laterally also. So you have to keep your cut something like this, making the outer cortex as thin as possible and come up to the medial aspect of the second molar. After you've come here, at this point, now you have to change the direction of the cut to a vertical one, and that is the third part of the cut. Now, in making the third part of this cut, it's important to keep two important things in mind. One is that mouth prop that you had placed for making these cuts has to be now removed, and the mandible can be relatively closed back in position. The other thing is that you need to place a channel retractor. You have to reflect these tissues down and place a channel retractor here. That gives you two advantages. One is it kind of holds the mandible, stabilizes the mandible at the lower aspect, and also this channel retractor, when you're making this cut through the outer cortex and the buccal cortex in this region of the second molar, you will find that there is a risk that your burr may accidentally slip and injure in the soft tissue here, the facial vessels. So you are aware that the facial artery and the facial vessels will come up from the neck here, and then they swing around the submandibular gland, and then they ascend onto the face as the superior labial vessels. So if this soft tissue is well freed from the lower border of the mandible, so one is that there is no inadvertent injury into the soft tissue mucosa. Once you've done that, once all these three cuts are complete, you immediately do not take in your spreader to split, but you take in your chisel. I personally prefer to refine all these cuts with the chisel, and any kind of small interferences, once you chisel them out, they become easy. Especially the lower border in this region is very difficult to cut, because if you are gone down with your lower border here, the important thing is that you know that the neurovascular bundle is going to be traveling somewhere in this region, and when the neurovascular bundle is going to travel here, the thickness at which if I go in by around 3 to 4 mm, after that only I may find the neurovascular bundle. So that also means that the amount of cut I may make here is fine, but on the medial aspect of this I may not be able to make the entire cut. So that will leave some amount of attachment here at the lower border,
which can be a cause of unfavorable splits. So to clear this region, I prefer to use a 4 mm chisel at the lower border of the anterolateral cut to clear this, to prevent those splits, unfavorable splits. And here we look at the medial aspect again. The first cut, which is the medial cut here, that is 3 to 5 mm above the lingula. This is the oblique cut which is continuing from the anterior part of the medial cut and goes down to the lateral cut region. This comes up, its anterior margin is up to the second molar region, from where it becomes the vertical cut. And the vertical cut here, as you can see, is in this region, that is the second molar region. And while making the cuts, it's important that the position where the chisel is here now, at this position you can damage the inferior alveolar neurovascular bundle at some points, sometimes in some patients, because it is relatively higherly placed in these cases sometimes. So this is what you need to take care of. And once you're done with the the burr and the chiseling part, after that, you can use your spreader. The Smith spreader can be conveniently used to make the split. But I personally prefer to, work out my way with the chisels before I use the spreader, because using the spreader a little early in the osteotomy can land up, you can land up with making unfavorable splits in those cases. So, however, you can see how beautifully you will have a good amount of contact area for post-operative healing, good stabilization, and lesser relapses as compared to other osteotomies. And here you basically should understand that the proximal and the distal segments have to be completely separate and free from each other. Only then you will be able to really advance or set back the mandible. That's when the dentulous fragment is going to be free. And here's a clinical photograph of the anterior cut, that is the lateral cut. You can see the vertical cut, as well as you also will find that there's a third molar there which has not been extracted before this osteotomy, because it's not necessary to, it's not a contraindication to have third molars there. Again, the oblique cut, a beautiful view here. You can see the lateral aspect of the vertical cut, the oblique cut, and you can also see a little medially that there's a inner cortex there from which it has been cleanly split, and both the fragments are free of each other now. So that's about the one side of the osteotomy. This is the other side, showing you the same, the buccal as well as the lingual cortices, well free from each other. The oblique as well as the lateral cuts or the vertical cuts are clearly visible here. The medial cut, of course, is difficult to capture with a photograph because it's relatively deep, and I personally prefer a loop and light to do it, but a lot of people do it without that also. This is the fixation on one side. Basically, on the superior border, you need at least 2 screws on each side, following the basic principles. The same kind of fixation can be done on the other side. Some people prefer to use 3-dimensional plates here, but the point is, when you're using a 3-dimensional plate, the lower screws become very difficult to screw in. So, if your occlusion is stable and the fixation is good, you can maintain it with 2 screws on each side also. However, if you use a 3-dimensional fixation, it's your choice. So that's the setback of the mandible, and that is how you use this osteotomy to its advantage, and there should be no damage to the neurovascular bundle. And I think that is the important take-home message from this short video. I hope you are done with your coffee so that you enjoy these BSSO results as well. And if there is anything, please post it in the comment section, and please get back to me for any queries. We will come back to you with more coffee tutorials every few days. Thank you so much.